Remember 8-track tapes? This is the money hack hiding inside them. Back in the day, 8-track tapes blasted our favorite tunes from dashboards and living rooms across America. But did you know some of these forgotten plastic cartridges now sell for over $4,000? That's not a type of $4,000 for something you might have tossed during spring cleaning or relegated to a dusty corner of your attic. Right now, collectors are desperately hunting for specific 8-tracks that might be sitting in your storage boxes. That Beatles tape you played until it warped? It could be worth hundreds. That Elvis cartridge gathering dust? Potentially worth more than your monthly Social Security check. Even those obscure bands you followed before they hit it big might be hiding unexpected treasure. In the next few minutes, I'll reveal the 3 secret markers that separate worthless plastic from genuine gold mine, including one detail so subtle most people miss it entirely. For Diane in Memphis, spotting this single feature turned a forgotten box in her garage into a $12,000 windfall. Are you sitting on similar hidden wealth? Let's find out. You and I both know that feeling, the slight twinge of regret when we think about things we've discarded over the decades. Those baseball cards from childhood, the vintage furniture that was just old back then, maybe even those 8-tracks that seemed so obsolete once cassettes came along. Perhaps you've held on to yours all these years, tucked away in attics or basements too meaningful to throw away, but too outdated to use. Or maybe you've wondered if those tapes your spouse insists on keeping actually have some value beyond the memories they hold. There's something bittersweet about watching yesterday's everyday items transform into today's collectibles, isn't there? It's like witnessing time itself turn ordinary moments from our past into something suddenly precious. First story: Diane's garage sale. Gold. Diane had been widowed for 3 years when her children suggested she downsize from the 4-bedroom home where she'd lived for 42 years. While clearing out the garage, she discovered a sealed moving box labeled Martin's Music in her late husband's handwriting. Inside were 76 8-track tapes, untouched since their move in 1981. I nearly put them straight into the garage sale pile, Diane recalls. They were just taking up space, and who even has an 8-track player anymore? But something made her hesitate. A recent magazine article had mentioned vintage music formats making a comeback. On a whim, she photographed a few tapes and posted them to a collector's forum online. Within hours, her inbox was flooded with messages. One tape in particular, sealed copy of Pink Floyd's The Dark Side of the Moon, with a particular manufacturing code on the spine, had collectors offering increasing amounts. What started at $200 quickly escalated to $200 for that single tape. But the true surprise came when an expert pointed out something Diane would have never noticed on of her husband's country and western tapes was an extremely rare Capitol Records transition pressing with a unique black pinch roller instead of the standard white one. That single tape, purchased for $7.99 in 1973, sold to a private collector for $4,350. By the time Diane finished selling the collection, she had generated over $12,000, enough to fund a trip to meet her first grandchild in Australia, something she'd thought financially impossible before her discovery. But what Diane didn't realize was that she had overlooked several other valuable tapes because she didn't know about the second critical feature that collectors desperately seek. Second story: Robert's redemption. Robert had been a music store manager throughout the 1970s and had accumulated hundreds of 8-tracks as promotional copies and personal purchases. When his daughter Jennifer helped him move to a smaller apartment in 2018, she suggested they clear out the obsolete collection. Dad was resistant, but practical, Jennifer explains. We compromised by keeping just his favorites and photographing the rest before donating them. 2 years later, Jennifer stumbled across an article about valuable 8-tracks and immediately remembered her father's collection. With a sinking feeling, she realized they had given away potentially valuable items. She showed Robert the article during Sunday dinner. Instead of disappointment, Robert smiled and walked to his closet. From a shoebox on the top shelf, he pulled out 5 8-track tapes he had kept despite the downsizing, including a quadraphonic pressing of Santana's Abraxas and an early release of Bruce Springsteen's Born to Run with a manufacturing error on the label. I kept these because they felt special, Robert explained. The Springsteen one always made me laugh because they misspelled Bruce as Bryce on the spine. That spelling error detail most would never notice transformed a common tape into a rare collector's item worth $830. The quadraphonic Santana brought $750 from a Japanese collector. Robert's instinctive decision to keep these special tapes yielded over $2,300 funding a professional-grade digital piano he'd been eyeing for his new, smaller living space. What Robert hadn't realized was how close he'd come to overlooking the third and most lucrative category of valuable 8-tracks, a category that would change everything for our next story's protagonist. Third story, Carol's college fund. Carol had inherited her older brother's 8-track collection after he passed away in 1995. The 43 tapes had sat in a plastic storage bin in her basement for decades, a tangible connection to the brother she still missed. When her water heater leaked in 2020, she quickly moved the bin to safety, but noticed mold forming on the cardboard sleeves. I was heartbroken, Carol remembers. I thought they were ruined, but I couldn't bring myself to throw them away without at least seeing if they could be saved. She brought the collection to a media restoration specialist who delivered unexpected news. While some sleeves had minor water damage, the tapes themselves were in remarkable condition. More importantly, the collection included several early NARM promotional tapes, special editions never sold commercially, but given to radio stations and industry insiders. Among them was a Frank Zappa promotional tape with alternate mixes of songs and a handwritten labelone of perhaps a dozen remaining in existence. There was also a NARM-exclusive Beatles compilation that predated their official greatest hits release. These industry promotional items, never intended for the public, proved extraordinarily valuable. The Zappa tape alone sold for $3,800 at a specialized auction. The entire collection, which Carol had nearly discarded after water damage, ultimately brought $15,700, exactly what she needed to help her granddaughter with college expenses. My brother would be laughing about this, Carol says. He always said his music would be worth something someday, but none of us believed him. Yet Carol nearly missed this windfall because she didn't recognize the fourth key indicator of 8-track value one that distinguished ordinary releases from extraordinary treasures. Fourth story, Tom's tag sale triumph. Tom had been an avid garage sale hunter for decades, always looking for vintage tools and fishing equipment. He rarely glanced at the boxes of records and tapes that seemed present at every estate sale. But after reading about valuable 8-tracks, he began paying attention. At a church tag sale in rural Pennsylvania, Tom spotted a shoebox filled with 8-tracks priced at 50 cents each, or $5 for the box. Most were common titles from the 70s, The Carpenters, John Denver, Fleetwood Mac Nothing, exceptional. But mixed among them was something that caught his newly trained eye. A plain white 8-track with only a small inventory number written on the spine and a song list taped to the front. No commercial packaging, no artwork. Tom purchased the entire box and later discovered he had found an acetate equivalent attest pressing sent to artists for approval before commercial production. This particular tape contained early versions of Eagles songs, some with slight differences from the commercially released versions. After authentication, the plain white tape sold to a museum of music history for $3,600. From a $5 box at a church sale, Tom had extracted a piece of music history worth more than his monthly pension check. Now I never pass a box of old tapes without looking, Tom laughs. My wife thinks I've lost my mind, but she changed her tune when that check cleared. What Tom discovered was the power of provenance, the fourth and most valuable aspect of 8-track collecting that we're about to explore. These stories reveal truths about value and collecting that extend far beyond plastic cartridges filled with magnetic tape. First, time transforms the ordinary into the extraordinary. What was mass-produced entertainment becomes scarce treasure simply through the passage of decades and changing technology. Second, value often hides in plain sight, distinguished by details so subtle that only knowledge can reveal them: a black pinch roller instead of white, a misspelled artist name, a promotional stamp not meant for retail. These seemingly minor variations can multiply value tenfold. Third, there's a profound irony in how these once disposable items have become valuable precisely because most people did dispose of them. The very act of treating something as temporary sometimes creates its future rarity and worth. But this raises a deeper question. In our increasingly digital world, where music exists as invisible files rather than physical objects, what are we losing in our relationship with our cultural artifacts? When nothing is rare, because everything can be duplicated infinitely, does something fundamental change in how we value the creative works that shape our lives? Here's the insight that transformed junk into treasure for Diane, Robert, Carol, and Tom. The most valuable 8-tracks aren't necessarily from the most famous artists or even the most beloved albums. What drives extraordinary value is the intersection of rarity and documentation, knowing not just what you have, but being able to prove its authenticity and uniqueness. The true collectors understand something profound about physical media. These objects aren't just delivery systems for music. They're historical artifacts that document specific moments in culture, technology, and business. A misprint isn't a mistake. It's evidence of a human moment in a manufacturing process. A promotional copy isn't just a marketing tool. It's a glimpse into how the music industry once operated. What if we reconsidered our relationship with our past, not as nostalgia, but as stewardship of cultural history, each object telling a story larger than itself? Perhaps these forgotten plastic cartridges offer us a gentle reminder about perception and value. The very things we dismiss as obsolete or commonplace today may someday be treasured precisely because they captured something essential about our moment in time. There's a tender wisdom in preserving connections to our past, not out of inability to let go, but from understanding that ordinary objects become extraordinary through the simple passage of time. The things that surround us now, that seem utterly commonplace, may someday tell stories we can't yet imagine. Your basement, attic, or storage space might contain more than memories. It might hold physical evidence of cultural moments that future generations will struggle to understand without these tangible touchstones. As you consider those boxes tucked away in closets or shelves lined with yesterday's technology, remember that value transforms with time and knowledge. What seems outdated today may become tomorrow's treasure, not just financially, but as tangible connections to moments that helped shape who we've become. Perhaps the real wealth isn't just in what these objects might be worth someday, but in the stories they preserve, the soundtrack of drives with windows down, of first dances, of moments when a particular song seemed to explain the world in a way nothing else could. May you look upon your collections and keepsakes with new eyes, seeing not just what they were or what they might be worth, but the irreplaceable moments of your life they continue to hold safe across the decades. And next time, discover why those worthless stock certificates in your family papers might be sleeping giants, and the 3-minute test that could reveal if you're sitting on forgotten wealth from America's industrial golden age.